welcome to another episode of Recliner Wrestling Review. I'm Jared, here alongside with my good friend John. John, how's it going today, man? How are you?
I'm great. Ready to talk about some wrestling with you.
Same. I feel like deja vu almost. It's crazy.
For sure.
Yeah, you want to tell the people what we're here for?
We are going to talk about Starrcade 1997, my pick, because I haven't watched Hogan vs. Sting in a while, and I'm curious how it holds up.
Yeah, so this is, to kind of give a quick gloss over, we've got a lot of star power on the show. We've got the first match, if we're both recalling correctly, with Hogan versus Sting. We've got Bret Hart has just jumped ship from right off the heels of the Montreal Screwjob from WWF over to WCW. There's a lot going on, so I'm excited to see it. This will be my first time viewing it, so there's a lot of pros and cons to this show, I would say.
I am going to have to agree with you 100%. When we talk about rebooking the show later on, I've got a lot of notes. But yeah, I thought there was some really great stuff in it too.
So let's go ahead before we totally get things kicked off here. Be sure to go over to you're on our YouTube page, but make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn your notifications on. And then you can check out our social medias over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also hear this very episode on audio-only form, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and Podbean. And as always, you can send us an email with any kind of show topics you'd like us to discuss or things of that nature to reclinerwrestlingreview@gmail.com. And
Jared will be the one checking those emails.
We'll see about that, brother. So here we are. We're at Starrcade, which of course takes place on December 28th of 1997. When it comes to us from the MCI Center in Washington, D.C., where we have 1,750 fans.
17,500.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's been a long day.
Yeah, they sold a few more tickets than that.
Yeah,
than like 1,700.
17,500 people.
There we go.
And this is the 15th installment of Starrcade. Little quick history on the MCI Center, by the way. This is the first wrestling event at the new MCI Center, which less than a year later, of course, is renamed the Verizon Center, now known as the Capital One Center. But of course, MCI is no longer a telephone company. It was bought out by Verizon, so it was quickly rebranded. But in doing more research on the building itself, kind of the nerd that I am, for those of you who may not realize, that is also the same building that the first episode of AEW Dynamite airs 22 years later. So that was October 4th of 2019. So yeah, building has some history to it as far as wrestling. If you would have bought the VHS version of this, I almost said this DVD of this pay-per-view back in the day, this is what the cover would have looked like. And kind of, going off of what you said, John, on the last episode, just has that very 90s feel to it. You could see all the big star power all over the front. And it just, like you said last time, it just jumps off the shelf and makes you want to buy it. So,
it's got match of the century on the front. Hogan versus Sting. That's why I wanted to go back and watch this. They're selling that match, and I thought they did a great job selling it.
Yeah, the buildup is very good for sure. So we go get our big wide shot of the arena with all 17,500 people, and all the crazy pyro, of which one of the pieces of pyro really stood out to me. The fact that they lit pyro right in the middle of the ring before the first match. And this was not like some little thing. This is like a mini atomic bomb that goes off in the middle of the ring. It was crazy. It's not anything that I've seen on the other side, on the other channel, if you will, in WWF. So it was interesting. It was neat to see, just a little something. But,
what if the ring would have caught on fire? It makes me nervous.
Well, not only that, but all the little pieces of stuff that happen. If you've ever lit fireworks and stuff, all that soot and all that stuff just falls straight back down. So imagine wrestling and all that.
Yeah, having to bump on it.
Yeah. So talk about getting some heat.
Oh, that's bad. That's real bad.
Well, what's not bad is the opening package where we get Sting versus Hogan. This is a great little build-up package. This is very much so leaning heavy on the new, if you will, edition of Sting, where we've got the Crow Sting, and they've got a lot of great videography and stuff in this, where he's just like in this abandoned building, and you see torn up pictures of Hogan laying around, and he's stomping on those and all that kind of stuff. And we get a graphic that comes across that says he watches from the shadows. He's witnessed the ruin of an empire. Now he seeks the ruin of one man. Brother. Yeah, then we get the close-up shot of Sting. I thought this was really cool how the Starrcade logo is in his let's see here, right eye, and then it zooms in on that, and that's what brings us into the arena. Just a really cool package, really well done.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really cool. I think we were talking about it, like very similar to like the Crow movie. I think this kind of sets the stage for like future video packages to come, and it's the evolution of Sting getting away from the tie-dye, and this is his first real big match as the Crow Sting character.
And that's what I thought. I was thinking that this is, you know, one of the first outings on pay-per-view away from what's commonly referred to as Surfer Sting. So, yeah. Good stuff. We get Dusty Rhodes, Tony Schiavone, and Iron Mike Tenay. And I was not familiar with Mike Tenay's nickname being Iron Mike. Coming from the other channel, if you will, Iron Mike to me was always Mike Tyson. And I'm not sure Tenay could hold a candle to Tyson, but it was an interesting nickname, if you will.
Yeah. And what was this? I feel like this was before Mike Tyson showed up on WWE TV.
If it was barely before.
Just before that Mania.
In boxing, he was still known as Iron Man Mike Tyson. Yeah. So, and it would have been from this exact era.
Yeah. But yeah, Mike Tenay, I always refer to him as the Professor. So that's
gotcha. And,
and I was kind of blew over the Iron Mike thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, they were leaning heavy in the Iron Mike on this evening, so it kind of stick out to me.
And they kind of opened the show really talking about the war that's been brewing for so long. They're building up Hogan and Sting, and they're talking about WCW versus NWO. That's the big selling point on this show, and they talk about, and you'll see it throughout the show. We'll reference it, but they keep showing wrestlers in the crowd throughout this and talking about how, they brought them here on their own dime. That was kind of the big theme of the show, WCW versus NWO. You've got Sting and Hogan, you've got DDP taking on Kurt Hennig, and you've got Bischoff and Zbyszko. So that's kind of the overall idea.
Is it not? It's almost for the rights of the Monday night show, as far as the branding of the show and that kind of stuff, like who's going to take over, sort of. So they, like you said, they're leaning really heavy on the WCW versus NWO. And right from the top, immediately, like some of the what I'll refer to going forward as WCW isms start right off. I mean, we get Tony talking to Dusty, and Dusty starts talking, and all of a sudden we just get music playing overhead in the PA for like an awkward amount of time, like what felt like almost 2 minutes.
Time to start the show. Somebody's coming out.
But they just kept, commentators kept telling their story.
Yeah.
So we finally end up going down to the ringside and cutting away from commentary to see Dean Malenko make his way to the ring to battle against Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight Championship.
And Dean's known as the Iceman during this, and he plays that character so well. His character doesn't have a lot of charisma, and he's very serious. He's all about the work, all about the match quality. And Eddie, I love that picture of Eddie you picked. I really do. The belt over the shoulder, the mullet.
Backwards.
Yeah, he's just. I look at that and I'm like, WCW heel Eddie. This is great.
Gotcha. See, and yeah, I know that for you that kind of translates to like, oh, this is really cool. For whatever reason, and I don't know if it was just because he was immediately following Dean Malenko, but to me, both of these entrances, it seemed like the wrestlers just didn't want to be there. So for me, it wasn't necessarily. It didn't come off as cool for him to have the championship backwards. It was like, yeah, I just don't want to be here. I really don't care. So it's interesting to see through the different filters. Again, you watched this during the time, so this was cool to you. This was totally unknown to me for the most part. Like again, I went to school and got caught up on the highlights of things, but I never got down into the minutia of all this. So.
I mean, I felt like Dean could have always done something cooler on his entrance than just walk out. But I mean, that's what he was. He was the Iceman. Yeah. He was business.
Yep, and it worked for him. And it was I can relate to that because of Lance Storm, who did the same thing. So it's not necessarily new ground for me. So I get that character, but yeah, it was just an interesting little take. Overall, the match was like really, really good, very snug, exactly what I would expect from Eddie and Dean both. One of the things of note was you can see here in the picture that we've got Dean Malenko mounted over top of Eddie Guerrero, and he's giving him punches to the head. But oddly enough, the crowd is counting along, and that jumped out because normally that's something that you see whenever you've got two wrestlers in the corner where the crowd counts along to 10. But they were with it on this match. They were really behind the match, so it was great to watch.
Yeah, definitely very snug, very well put together match where these guys just went out and tore it up, and they gave them time, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
For an opener with two guys this talented.
Yes, 14 minutes 57 seconds. The crowd is really with it, and the crowd really could care less who's a heel and who's a face. I'm assuming going into this, Eddie's supposed to be the heel, but here you can see him like kind of firing up, and the crowd, I mean, is literally standing on their feet cheering him on. So it really kind of doesn't matter. It's just how good the match is. So there's a lot of really good offense from both guys, and it's snug. Like they're working hard. The only thing as far as kind of a botch that stood out was it looked like Eddie was going for a Frankensteiner off the top rope. I don't know if it was a balance issue, if somebody got off balance or what, but they just kind of pushed each other off and fall to the ground. I appreciate that they didn't immediately get back up and try it again. That's to me a more professional way of handling it, is just move on.
I like that you called it a Frankensteiner. I feel like any show we watch with Scott Steiner, it needs to be called a Frankensteiner. And if he's not on the show, we can call it a Hurricane Rana. So
I mean, that's fair. I've always just I've categorized it not by Scott but by WCW.
Okay. Oh, okay, that works too.
Yeah. So yeah, again, really solid match. We get the finish with the ever so amazing frog splash from Eddie. I thought it was interesting that you can kind of see Dean rolls into it, but almost too much, and like Eddie just eats the side of Dean's hip on that. And I know that couldn't have felt good, but what does feel good is the fact that Eddie hits the 3 count and retains the WCW Cruiserweight Championship.
And talking about, like, you were talking about, like, how Dean kind of rolled into it. You talking about, like, an RVD frog splash, and RVD is like, oh, he's high, he extends, it's real pretty. Eddie, I always felt like his frog splash was all about the impact. And, like, he's going in and bam, hits this guy and gets the pin.
And you're exactly right. And you can see here on this picture, look at his forearms. He does everything he can to make as much of an impact as possible, both visually and audibly. So, yeah. He's a solid worker, was Eddie.
You're going in there as champion and leaving as champion, Eddie Guerrero, and your opener on Starrcade.
Yeah, and a typical style of opener for WCW. It felt like they almost always relied on the cruiserweights to open the show. But what a phenomenal opening match this was. So, if going forward, if this is the tone of the pay-per-view, I'm so far total thumbs up. So, we shall see.
And here, one of the matches that's advertised is going to be the Big Show. The Giant. Battle of the Giants. The Giant and Kevin Nash are supposed to have a match on this card because I mean this is the WrestleMania Starrcade, and this Battle of the Giants is supposed to take place, and it's December 28th. It's the holidays. Things are going on. Big Kev, he's with family, celebrating, having a good time, and he wakes up the morning of the show, and he's not feeling great. Thinks he's actually having a heart attack, and he had to get a hold of Bischoff. He's like, hey, I'm going to the hospital. I'm not going to make my flight. obviously he didn't have a heart attack, but it's scary time, and that's why this match doesn't happen. So next up is Scott Hall coming out, and he cuts a promo. He hits the "Hey Yo" at the beginning, and I feel like this promo's early on in the Scott really getting over, because he, like, the crowd's cheering at awkward times, and he hits the "Hey Yo" and there's not a big cheer, and then he starts to do the survey, and what are your thoughts? Like, the survey, it doesn't go like,
yeah. So the survey, perfect. I mean, what his delivery and everything is totally fine. It's the crowd that isn't really like, oh, I get the shtick, so let's go with this. Because like you said, he hits a "Hey Yo," "Hey Yo," and you get kind of a pop, but it's not like the massive pop that it would become. And then he's like talking about, here, let's do a survey, as like you said, that kind of became his shtick. And he says, are you with us? And the crowd, just kind of makes some noise. And he goes, or are you against us? And the crowd, like really makes some noise. So the crowd is saying that they're against them. Then his next line is, who came to see WCW? And you get a little bit of crowd noise. And then, who came to see the NWO? And then there's another big crowd pop. So they're both against the NWO, but they came to see the NWO.
Yeah, and I feel like reflecting on this, some towns were heavy WCW towns and some were NWO towns, which it sounds crazy, but that's WCW, like, in the late 90s. That's a good
point, John. Yeah. And I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I would imagine your more southern states and stuff like that are more WCW. Probably the same with the Carolinas and that kind of thing, even.
Yeah, and I would almost think that, like, rural is going to be more WCW, but anytime you're like in an urban dwelling in a city, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that NWO is cool. I'm gonna cheer to them."
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could imagine like NWO like being over in Detroit or Chicago or that kind of thing. Yeah. So he
cuts his promo
that Nash isn't here tonight, and then we get the Giant comes out and cuts a promo, and it's not great. It's not awful, but it's not great by any means.
I like that he didn't go out there and yell and scream, but he's very calm. Yeah. And then he goes after Scott.
Yeah, in a big way. Like the whole gorilla press slam, which was super impressive. Let's not forget the fact that Scott Hall is like, what, 6'3", 6'5", something like that. Like, he's no small.
I thought he was like 6'6" or 6'7".
I'll take it. And then, like, just with ease, like he's I almost called him the Big Show right there too. The Giant Paul White is not even breaking a sweat, and he's nowhere. I mean, the Giant's weight over the years has fluctuated. This is not his most slender, but it's also not his most heavy. But he's not even. I mean, this is no sweat to him to lift this big guy and slam him down. So
I just confirmed Scott Hall's 6'7". It's people think he's 6'3" or 6'4" because he's always standing next to Kevin Nash, who 7-footer, and Scott Hall, just like by appearance, like, oh, he's always standing, he's always short, like next to Nash. But Hall's 6'7". He's a big dude. Wow. He's huge.
Yeah, 6'7". That would be bigger than Hogan. So, yeah. So we get that, and then he teases the choke slam, but says and we get instead the jack, or no, is it a jackknife or Razor's Edge?
He do that. He does the jackknife power bomb, kind of taunting Nash, and then he does the Scott Hall.
And it was great to see. If you hit the fast forward button in time and you see some of the different things that the Big Show did in WWE, where he would impersonate other wrestlers and stuff, it's kind of neat to see this foreshadowing that, of course, he couldn't have known the future of his own career, but it's just neat to see Paul White, impersonating other wrestlers, because you could just tell he's a fan of the business. So it was cool. Up next,
and Hall also kind of put over the other thing that he's going to get a title shot at the next Super Brawl of whoever wins. Hogan versus Sting. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, okay, you're talking about the next event. But on the fly, I thought that was a cool little, Kev's not going to be here. Let's put something on, and I thought that was a good thing. But we'll talk about like what they could have done later. But that was a nice like, okay, we got to have the giant go out there. What are we gonna do? Let's do this.
Yeah, way better than just dropping the idea altogether.
Yeah.
So then we get NWO Elite, and I say that tongue in cheek because I don't know who the heck Scott Norton is, and I'm not a fan of Vincent. So
I don't think you know what elite means.
You might be onto something, but yeah.
So Vincent and Norton come out for a 6-man.
By the way, we haven't even touched on this, but what is he wearing? What is Scott Norton wearing? Why does it look like he's got a large lady's bikini pulled up like so high in his crotchal area? I don't get this at all.
It's the big man singlet.
It's what?
The big man singlet.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
Well, it looks awful.
So these two are out for a 6-man tag. Conan is just missing. So okay, whatever. Next up.
Well, so they announced the they said his name like 100 times through the pay-per-view. Now I forgot. What's the ring announcer's name?
Penzer.
David Penzer. Yes. Yeah. So David Penzer's on the mic and announces Norton and Vincent, and then he says, and their tag team partner Conan, and then like the mic just shuts off, and it's like okay, but the commentary team has said it's a 6-man tag team.
Yeah.
So then we get, and their opponents, the Steiner brothers with Ray Traylor, with Ted DiBiase. So we've got 2 versus 4. And I'm like, well, is this how your 6-man is? Like, I don't get this. And then I thought, oh, okay. So we're going to have the Steiner brothers with Ted and Ray Traylor at ringside. And it's going to be 3 teams of 2. Oh, no. That's not even accurate.
So, It would have made sense for your babyface tag team to come out first, and even then, bringing out Vincent and Norton, those are your heels, and your mystery partner gets the babyface pop. So it's just kind of awkward, like they're doing the tweener versus tweener.
Levels to that awkwardness. You're right. Yeah. Like, and I get traditionalist, and I tend to fall more on this side more times than not, where you want your chance to come out last. But man, it is, in my opinion, and it's not worth the sacrifice of an even bigger pop. Like, if you can amplify a pop, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, don't waste it.
Yeah. So, needless to say, we get the entrance of the Steiner brothers and Ray Traylor. And then all of a sudden, finally, we get NWO music with Macho Man Randy Savage and Elizabeth. I stumbled there because another thing that I wanted to bring up that I never knew. So I'm going to make a analogy, and so I'll use WWF. I'll use DX. So you know how you had the DX music, break it down. And then you had like everybody had their kind of own little slight version of that. Like with X-Pac, make some noise, X-Pac, and then it was still DX kind of music. I never noticed that NWO did the same kind of thing. Like you got ooh yeah every now and then over top of the NWO music. And there was another one later on in the night that did the same kind of thing for somebody else, and I was like, wow, I never knew that about the NWO music. So that was a cool little tidbit.
Yeah, something new.
Yeah.
But yeah, Macho Man comes out, gets a pop. I mean, it's Macho Man, like unadvertised.
Yeah. And he looks. I thought Macho looked great. Liz, on the other hand, I thought not so much. She's looked better to me.
Shut your mouth. She's a lady.
She's a lady. She just doesn't look quite as wholesome as she did in WWF for some reason. I can't put my finger on what that is, but I do have some ideas, but I'll just save those, I suppose.
One thing I want to say is Macho Man, for being that guy known for all the flashiness, like the cool bright colors in the 80s, the cowboy hats, all the tassels and all that. I love the simplicity of this black and white gear. I think he just made it look cool.
You really, really did. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, John, because I've always thought the same thing. Hogan was able to make the black and white look kind of cool, but nobody did it better than Macho Man, I believe. And I like how he does kind of an ode to himself. He doesn't completely lose the tassels. He's got like a little butt
like the
flap.
fringe on the boots and the thing on the belt. Yeah. So.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's cool. It's just he made the black and white work. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, yep.
We get the match itself.
There's a few things of awkwardness to me. Like is this Rick or Scott? I can't even tell. One of the Steiner brothers goes for a power slam, and it
looks like Rick to me.
It's pretty awkward.
Yeah, it's Rick.
It's like his body is not rotated at the right time. It's just it almost looked like a body slam. But they stuck to their guns on commentary and called it a power slam, and I was like, okay, I'll accept that, I guess. Another awkward moment was whenever Ray Traylor was having to tell Vincent to attack him in the corner, right on camera.
And I don't think Vincent was the worst thing in the match.
Okay.
I don't. Norton, for like as much credit as Norton gets as a great worker, there's times where you mentioned it about Eddie and Dean, like looking like they didn't want to be there. I thought once the match started, and that's kind of what their characters were. That made sense to me for Eddie and Dean. Norton, I felt like he wasn't selling. I felt like he's walking around awkwardly, and he's going through the motions of a wrestler, and I don't think he was committed to it. I don't know.
No, that's a very fair point. And again, I before this pay-per-view, I didn't even know who Scott Norton was, let alone the legend of how good he was here or in Japan or what have you. I had never seen the dude before, so. It's an interesting match. It goes 11 minutes and 6 seconds, which started to feel a little long, but I'm glad it wasn't any longer than what it was.
Yeah, Macho was able to get his stuff in. I love that you put this picture in there. It's almost like a doomsday spinning DDT.
Yeah.
And it's not the finish. It's super cool.
It was super cool. It was a high spot in a time where high spots weren't oversaturated. It definitely could have been and probably should have been the finish of the match.
It looked like death for Vincent.
Yeah. And that's kind of the vibe I got through most of the night, was that Vincent looked like he was, and I'm not saying this to just crap on Vincent. He looked like he was legit, like scared to take bumps. And so like
he
when
took
he
that
and stuff, they're not like, he doesn't attack the mat. He's almost like, it's just Vincent. Yeah. So we end up getting let's see here. There we go. So we get
it's almost like a
Scott Norton with Scott on the Scott Norton with Scott Steiner. I'll get it right eventually. On his shoulders, and he does like just falls to his back and sets up for Macho Man to drop the elbow. And then we get our 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. I mean, awkward as a whole, but I mean, Macho got his stuff in. I think that's all people really wanted to see, was that pop of Macho Man, and then we got to see the elbow drop. And the Steiners got cheered a good chunk too. So
they did, yeah. And that was, correct me if I'm wrong, the dog-faced gremlin thing, that was kind of a thing of the past that was brought back for this. Is that right?
That sounds about right. Yeah. So. I mean, they're tag champs at the time, and I thought they had cool music too, and they had a good reaction from the crowd. Yeah,
yep. And I feel like as somebody that just kind of checked in every now and then on WCW, judging by the appearance of Scott Steiner, it looks like this is, I mean, just almost a turn of where we get Big Papa Pump.
He's got to join the NWO, he's got to join the NWO, bleach his hair and shave down a little bit, and you've got Big Papa.
Yep. So we go go up to the top of the ramp. We get Mean Gene interviewing JJ Dillon, but not, of course, before he plugs his own WCW hotline, 1-900-909-9900. It's not even on the network. You can't even see the numbers, but it's ingrained in my head. And we'll talk about the WCW hotline in the future, I'm sure. because yeah, there's some interesting stuff there. But yeah, so Mean Gene is interviewing JJ Dillon, who at the time was the chairman of WCW Executive Committee, whatever that means. And JJ announces the ref of the main event between Sting and Hulk Hogan will be Nick Patrick.
Yeah, the NWO ref. Keep in mind this is a month after the Montreal Screwjob, so WCW has signed Bret Hart, and they're what happened to Bret in WWF. They don't want any shenanigans in WCW, so they want to find the perfect ref for the match. And
Gotcha.
They put all the names in a hat, and they pulled out Nick Patrick, the heel ref from the NWO.
Right. I'm glad you said. I'm glad you clarified that, because being a fan of WWE, whatever, whenever the buyout happens between WWE and WCW, that's whenever I first hear of Nick Patrick, and he's a heel ref. So that's really cool to see that it dates back all the way to 1997, even, or probably prior, for all I know. I don't know, but yeah, quite a reputation, and kind of a cool opposition, if you will, to babyface Earl Hebner in WWE. It's a neat take to have a heel ref for something different. So, needless to say, after that interview, we go on to our next singles match between Goldberg and Steve Mongo McMichael. And so the obvious thing that jumps off the page to me here is Bill Goldberg with no big backstage entrance, no smoke, no pyro, no nothing. He literally just walks to the ring. So
and not in the main event.
Yeah.
Pretty early on in the show.
And I think, didn't you say off air that this next Starrcade in '98, the following year, is headlined by Goldberg winning the title?
Yeah, Goldberg, a year from this show, will defeat Kevin Nash for his first WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
Well, what a crazy difference 1 year can make.
Yeah. So this is early on in the streak, and
so hang on, are they calling it a streak yet?
I don't think they called it the streak at this point. He's just a guy going out clobbering people, hitting people hard.
If I've got this right, I don't think they started the acknowledging a streak. They admitted he was undefeated, but I don't think the streak actually came to term until it was Goldberg versus DDP. Is that right?
Sounds accurate.
Okay, yeah. I feel like that's right. Okay, so I'll give you my 2 cents if you give me your 2 cents. What do you think of Steve Mongo McMichael?
Well, do I think he should have been a member of the Four Horsemen? Probably not. Do I think he's a guy who's probably really well liked backstage? Yeah. People, I always talk highly of Mongo. And can he go in a brawling match? Sure. So this is, an appropriate match for Mongo. Do I want to see him go 20 minutes with Bret Hart? Probably not. But him with the football background going against Goldberg with the football background, 2 big guys who are going to hit each other hard and have a good fight. I'll give that 10 minutes. That'll be a fun watch.
Yeah. I don't know why. I've just not been a big Mongo fan. I've seen a little bit of his commentary, and I don't even want to go as far as to comment on his commentary because I want to give him a fair shake at that. But just from flipping the channels back in, over 20 years ago now, nothing jumped off the page for me for Mongo. And it's weird because it's a reoccurring theme, right? To have wrestlers that have been football players. And sometimes it just really works. Ron Simmons comes to mind. Eventually Goldberg, really kind of gets in the swing of things. There's been several over the years, but for whatever reason, Mongo just to me did not translate from football player to wrestler. He just seemed like a clunky football player pretending to be a wrestler, is how it always came across to me. And I think I've got a picture here that will show, but even some of his footwork to me stood out as just being kind of clunky. But nonetheless, we start the match off hot, which was very refreshing. If there's supposed to be, some kind of rivalry happening here, like you pointed out, both of them former football players. So it was nice to see Goldberg rush up to the ramp and meet Mongo, only for Mongo to kick him and start attacking, and that's how he started the match. we get Goldberg, you know, kind of reversing that brawl, and immediately before he even gets in the ring, he picks up a table, uh, and so I'm like, okay, well, here come the crutches.
Hey, this is what the match needed to be.
And I would agree with that. It does need to be kind of a stiff, in your face kind of brawl. Um, it just, I guess, it would have been at the same time kind of refreshing to see them do more wrestling moves, because then it would have made sense for them as people. Okay, now we've transitioned from football players to wrestlers, not just like, hey, we're big dudes and you wouldn't want to mess with us, we'll beat you up. And I think that Goldberg kind of got that more as time goes on, whereas Mongo did not, and that's kind of why he doesn't translate to me as well. But yeah, there you go. So you can kind of see it's so hard to see in just a picture whenever there's not a video clip. But Mongo has to like kind of reshuffle his feet really quick whenever he goes against the rope, as he's Irish whipped by Goldberg, to come and get a spear. And that spear, man, that was not pretty. It was so low. Yeah, it was Goldberg just like speared right on his kneecaps, and it just looked like two sacks of potatoes just colliding in midair. It was weird. Very different from what we would know Goldberg as, like you said, within a year. So then he picks up Mongo, and they tease the table spot, and Mongo, you know, gets out of it, whatever, ends up on the apron, and what puts him through a table? A single punch to the face. And I was just, oh, okay. So then instead of you know, letting him get counted out or whatever, Goldberg picks him up, brings him back in the ring, gives him a jackhammer. And yeah, there's your 1, 2, 3. So yeah, thoughts on the match, John?
Yeah, it was fine. Quick, smash mouth.
Yep.
Kind of a weak table spot, but I mean, you got a table spot. And yeah, I mean, you've got this rising star Goldberg, and he needs to start beating some names instead of just like beating like local guys every week. Yeah. Let's give him a name and see how he does in a pay-per-view match, and let him go. And yeah, I thought he succeeded here for sure.
Yeah, the two biggest things that kind of jumped off the page to me was the entrance being very just no pomp and circumstance yet for Goldberg in the entrance, and the fact that the match was 5 minutes and 59 seconds long. I was like, this has got to be like a record Goldberg match.
Yeah, I mean, that's long for a WCW Goldberg match.
It is. So this is before the formula of 30 seconds to 2 minutes and squash it and pin you, and we're done. Yeah.
It would have been, what, pyro, growl, punch, spear, jackhammer, growl, leave. There it is.
All the facials. Yeah. Who's next? Yeah, you're next. So then we get Raven coming down to the ring from the ramp, from the stage area, not from the crowd, which is odd for the flock. But he comes to the ring and sits down in the corner to cut a promo, which I thought was really cool. The first person that reminded me of almost was Jake Roberts, because he's making you come to him, be it the cameras, be it whatever, rather than standing in the ring and pacing back and forth and cutting a regular promo. I thought this was really refreshing, very smart on Scotty's Raven. I'll try to stick to the names on Raven's part to cut a promo like that. But it was really interesting to me. Like, his delivery of the promo was totally fine. I've never had an issue with a Raven promo, if I'm being honest. It was the content of what he was saying that he basically has creative control, is kind of the essential story of what he's telling here, that he can choose who he wants to fight and when and where and that kind of thing. And he says that he's not going to fight tonight against Chris Benoit. He's going to announce somebody else to fight for him. And that just struck me as odd, because I'm like, well, you're not even a main event guy, so how do you have this much control? I don't get that. But and not even just in real life, but in storyline, I just, that was so weird to me.
Well, he was a big fish in ECW, and then he came to in ECW. Coming to WCW, I mean, it's Raven. He's got cool buzz behind him. I always thought he was a cool promo. I like him quite a bit. And, you know, the creative stuff, like, it's Raven's rules. That's kind of his whole thing. And he's got the flock with him. I always look at it as Raven's got the flock out there to take the bumps, be his minions, be those jabronis to get to the end of the level and fight Raven at the end of the level. And
right.
would I think Starrcade would be a better time to have one of those blow-off matches at the end of a level? Sure. But having Benoit and him, or having Benoit wrestle a member of the flock, that's cool. That's one way to go, and you're going to keep the storyline going that way. I'd rather have the big blow-off at Starrcade, though. Would have made more sense to me.
Right.
But, I mean, whenever they started the feud, I don't really remember. So it's, yeah. It is what it is, and it worked, and his choice from the flock, I thought, was great and had a great match with Benoit, Mr. Perry Saturn.
Yeah. So that's who he announces is Perry Saturn to take his spot. And I got to say too, it was weird for me to see Perry Saturn with hair. He's got kind of a little LOD mohawk almost on top, and it was kind of cool. Actually, I guess he almost resembled more closely one of the Bushwhackers. but yeah, so Chris Benoit and Perry Saturn. I've got to say, man, this is the match that I didn't expect to be as good as it was, and it totally blew me away. Both guys very snug, very solid in what they did, but man, did I sell Perry Saturn short. The dude was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Saturn and I'd put Canyon up there also were guys who had just killer matches in WCW, and they did okay in WWE, but they never reached the heights they probably could have.
Do you think that's booking, or do you think that's just like physicality, like their better years were behind them kind of thing?
With Canyon and Saturn, I think when they got to WWE, they suffered from holy cow, WWE just signed 100 guys, and what are we going to do with all of them? I think they just kind of got lost in the shuffle.
That's fair.
So,
that's fair.
Saturn went on to do the Moppy stuff, and I mean, that was over. People dug it, but
it was.
How far could you go with that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It was never going to be above low card, mid card kind of thing.
And Canyon was cool doing the like the MVP of the Alliance and stuff. Well, after you do the Invasion stuff, where do you go from there? And he kind of got lost in the shuffle after that, I felt like.
Yeah. So yeah, once he announces Perry Saturn is going to be his replacement, Chris Benoit comes to the ring and cuts a promo. Not his best work, but I did like the line about quote the Crippler Nevermore as opposed to quote the Raven Nevermore.
It was good. Little. It fit for a feud with Raven. I thought that was
did,
cool.
And it was short. It was concise, but not exactly Chris's strong point were promos. So we start off the match with some really good spots, a lot of great, solid looking suplexes from both guys. It was really well done. I was actually surprised, if I'm being honest, John, how much offense Perry Saturn got. This was not really a 50-50. This was very heavy on Perry being the one on offense most of the time. So it was really cool. It was a great match. If you've not seen Perry Saturn and a lot of his work, this is a match I would highly recommend going back and watch. Because it really does a great job, and as does Chris, of highlighting Perry's abilities here. But yeah, so we get Billy Kidman out on the outside, and then we get a run in from
Sick Boy.
I had to look that up. Both of them look homeless to me. Kidman was out at ringside too early. You can see him kind of lurking down in the corner there. Just waiting for a spot, and I was like, "Who's this guy that's jumped the rails?" And then I actually see Sick Boy jump the rail and attack Benoit, and then we get a shooting star press, if you will, from Billy Kidman onto Benoit, and you said it was known as something else in WCW.
Yeah, it was the 7-year itch was the name of his move, and if you were watching it, you saw him scratch like he was itchy. That's where it came from.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
wow. Interesting.
The Flock, I was a big fan of the Flock, and I got sucked into the Raven character. So seeing Sick Boy, Kidman, Saturn, Scotty Riggs, Lodi, all those guys there to kind of do Raven's bidding, I always thought that was fun stuff and really cool. And I thought they all served their purpose really well in this match.
Yeah, I would agree. I like I said, not only did I sell Perry Saturn short, but his athleticism is what I really sold short. His agility is a better way to put that. He at one point here you can see he like just with no hands runs up all 3 turnbuckles, jumps over to the top rope, and then does a moonsault and hits Benoit with that moonsault. And it was just, I mean, I was literally like taken aback by how athletic he was. For a big guy that's that muscular and stuff, you just don't expect to see somebody that agile. So that was really cool. Again, being a WWE or WWF loyalist, when to me, whenever Perry came over, I from my perception, it was almost like Perry was damaged goods, for lack of better terms at that point. Like, be it injuries or what have you, it just seemed like his better years were behind him. But I didn't know the years that were behind him were this good. So it was really cool to see Perry in this match because he shined a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so here's like what you were talking about at the beginning of the show, where we just keep randomly cutting, even in the middle of a great match, to show off the WCW guys sitting at ringside, to show their support for the show. Like,
they were just trying to put over the idea that, hey, these guys flew on their own and they're here for WCW. You've got Mortis, Alex Wright, Greg the Hammer Valentine's behind them. Who else was there? James Mitchell's hanging out. What was he? James Van Buren at the time or something?
Yeah, that might have been right. Yeah. There was a ton of people. I almost wrote down the names that the commentary team were listing off because there is an absolute who's who.
Yeah, they show Mysterio in the crowd at one point. I remember him being there. So,
and then again, me not having grown up with WCW, there were guys next to some of these people that looked like wrestlers, and I wasn't sure if they were wrestlers or not. But I was like, man, there are some big dudes around. So I was just assuming that they were all wrestlers that I didn't know.
But it was a weird cut in the middle of a match to like,
really,
hey, you've got some action going on. What are you showing these guys? Like,
and they're not.
And if they were cheering or something, but a lot of times they were just sitting there.
Right. Or exactly. And that's the thing. Like, not only so in the match, it wasn't like they were doing a rest hold and it's an easy way to cut away. But like you said, the crowd, it's not like the crowd was, like, they're literally just sitting there. Yeah. So it was very awkward. So we get Perry Saturn with gets the crippler crossface put on him on the outside. The Flock comes over and saves them. Perry jumps back in the ring to do a moonsault from the outside of the ring, which again, just the athleticism of Perry Saturn, I 100% sold short. Benoit moves out of the way and he nails everybody in the Flock.
Oh, terrible!
Yeah. Chris Benoit then hits a amazing diving headbutt from off the top rope over halfway across the ring. It was just amazing to see. I mean, that was a great headbutt. That was. I mean, just, I don't know. It was great. I really enjoyed it. So then Raven comes in the ring.
Yeah.
And tell me, forgive me, what's the name of the move?
They called it the even flow DDT. So what made it different from just a DDT was he'd kick the opponent, and so they're going down, then he grabs the head in one motion and hits the DDT. So it's a really smooth motion, and it's a great take on a move most guys do. Like a DDT, like people do them, and for him to just make it.
Wait a minute. That needs to be a shirt.
What's
DDT. That? People do them.
It happens. I mean, it's not like the Razor's Edge where, like, hey, you only see Razor doing that, or
don't do them.
They don't do it. So taking that DDT and just giving it like that extra kick makes it look really cool, really smooth. It makes it look like a credible finisher. So he hits it on Benoit. Benoit's out. Saturn comes in, picks up the pieces, rings of Saturn, and the referee calls for the bell because Benoit's unconscious. There she goes. Solid, fun match.
Very, very much so. 10 minutes
and
and 50 seconds on that one.
And it's one of those where they put all the heat on Benoit. So, when Benoit finally does get his hands on Raven, the crowd should be that much more behind Benoit. What was the thought?
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
And,
so
and
then
now,
we go
now match of the night.
Yeah, so about match of the night. Yeah. This is where I announced that you got heat with me, brother. After I put you through the In Your House It's Time pay-per-view and you complained about having to sit through a Sid match, your rebuttal to that is to make me not only watch a Buff Bagwell match, but Buff Bagwell versus Lex Luger. Are you kidding me right now? What?
Bro, who booked this?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have never been a big fan of Marcus past his entrance. And I've never met the guy, but listening to interviews and podcasts and stuff, like I don't really have a whole lot of time for Marcus. Yeah, it just he does not jump off the page to me as a wrestler. Lex Luger definitely does not jump off the page to me as a wrestler. But yeah, nonetheless, that's what we got.
The total package, Lex Luger, doesn't look like a wrestler.
Does he physically look like a wrestler? Yes. When he's wrestling, does he look like a wrestler? Not so much.
Oh.
I feel like Lex is about as clunky as Mongo McMichael.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, a lot of that is probably not his fault. I don't know a lot about Lex's story as far as his introduction into wrestling and stuff, but I mean, if I was a guessing man, he was a bodybuilder or a gym rat or whatever, and was spotted and like, hey, you can make money doing this, and then so he's probably like, fast tracked into TV. And so it's not really, I don't really blame Lex the person for not being a good worker.
Did you
situational?
Before this match, did you know what his finisher in WCW was before watching this?
In WCW, you mean WWF?
WCW.
No.
The torture rack? That was new to you?
No, that's what I'm saying. He did that in WWF back in the day.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I always remembered the forearm with the metal plate in it.
No, that was for an angle, I believe.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, he did the torture rack. If and hey, tell us in the comments if I'm wrong.
I never remember him doing the torture rack in WWF.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, and maybe my memory might be off too, but no, I definitely was familiar with the torture rack. And speaking of the torture rack, I'll say it right now: worst looking finisher, worst looking submission move in wrestling history.
Oh, I'm a fan of the torture rack. Yeah.
It's just dumb. You can't tell when your opponent taps out or if they pass. Like, it's everything about it. I hate everything about it. So nonetheless, so the speaking of Lex and all this
versus Bagwell, match of the century. If you recall the VHS box.
This is the worst match of the night. Hands down.
I'm not going to argue that.
So speaking of Lex, the funniest thing to me is you've got this guy that looks like $1 million. He really does look great. So as I was preparing for the show and taking screenshots and stuff to be able to show, kind of alongside with what we're talking about, the funniest thing was that Lex was scared of his own pyro. So I've got a picture, but right before that, you see him go. It's so funny. So if you get a chance, go back and look at him. He legit like just jumps out of his boots at his own pyro. But yeah, so on we go. Good Lord, we start with a bang. We get a lot of pomp and circumstance, and then Lex Luger ends up spitting on Buff Bagwell, which I didn't expect from what I grew up with as a white meat baby face. But then Buff Bagwell sells it and takes a bump. So much awkwardness that even the commentary, even Tony Schiavone says, I have it written down here somewhere. I don't know. Even Tony Khan on commentary calls him out for it, that he's taken a bump from Lex Luger spitting on him. Just really inside baseball right there on commentary, but it was really weird. I don't get that, but So be it. So yeah, let me go down to my notes here. Yeah, I don't really have a lot of notes on this match. I just try to endure it.
Well, Vincent comes out, and then Macho comes out, and then Norton comes out, and then Liz comes out to get Macho. Those were my notes. So,
yeah, all accurate.
And my thoughts on this is okay, like whatever. You're just trying to do Lex wrong. I get it. And Buff does get the win, but it's going to play more into the next match that upsets me.
And craziness. Like, it's not a clean match at all.
No. Which, it's fine, whatever. So far in the night, there's the rack. Yeah, rack 'em.
It's so bad. I mean, do you actually enjoy the move, or do you enjoy like just the memory of it and the visual, that kind of thing? Like, how do you enjoy this move at all?
It's the memories. So I remember as a kid thinking it was really cool. Now, I mean, it could get over again in the modern stuff, but
it could. I mean, when you look at the move itself, you could imagine it hurting the heck out of your back.
Yeah, but why doesn't Buff just punch him in the face or go to the eye?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, for wrestling purposes, it's awful on so many levels. You can't tell if he's tapping. You can't tell if he's passed out because there's so much motion. Yeah, why isn't he just punching Lex in the face or choking him in the throat? Like, yeah.
But for me, like as a 15-year-old kid, I'm watching this. I'm like, that dude is crazy strong. Look at him torture rack. That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nobody's using it now.
And I'll give you that. Because the spectacle of it is cool to see a grown man with another grown man just right on his shoulders. Yeah, it's I get that for sure.
So Lex cleans house, all this stuff, and
another torture rack.
Another rack. Racking them all. And then Norton, yeah.
In different clothes, finally, by the way.
Yeah. And this is one of those where I felt like Norton didn't want to be there either, where he doesn't sell anything, and then he's just kind of walking in the background like a cameraman again, where he's just like, dude, like, you know, like pretend to be invested, like make us believe this is a real event. Like,
right.
He doesn't do that.
Yeah. Well, and like you said at the top of the show, this is kind of WCW's WrestleMania, if you will. So, I mean, at least act excited for being on the biggest show of the year.
Yeah. Like with Sting versus Hogan, you know that gate's got to be, what did you say? It sold 17,000 tickets, but the pay-per-view buys have to be through the roof for this too.
Big time. Yeah. And the pay-per-view buys, I couldn't find an exact number, but multiple sources said it was 1.9 million. I don't know how truthful that is or not. There was also talk of Hogan saying it was over 2 million. So who knows? I'm sure the number's been inflated nonetheless, but this is actually WCW's highest selling pay-per-view in history. So
with that main event, it should.
The matches, the card before we saw the pay-per-view was stacked. It was a stacked deck for sure.
You see the finish here if you're watching the YouTube version, where Norton hits Luger and Buff takes the win.
Yeah, we get the whole. They're both passed out basically. So Norton drags Bagwell's limp body over and drapes the arm for the 3 count, and let's keep everybody strong.
Yeah, NWO victory. There we go.
Yeah. Yep. Then we get a fresh of breath air. We get, by the way, that match was 16 minutes and 36 seconds. I thought that was 16 minutes too long. It just drug on. There's so much outside interference and gaga. I was just like, ready to So we get Kurt Hennig, the WCW US Heavyweight Champion, in a singles match defending against It's DDP. Yeah, and I'm not sure. Did they have kind of a long-term feud that had happened here between Kurt and DDP, or?
So DDP was kind of that first guy besides Sting to really like stand up to the NWO, and DDP was the people's champion at the time, and he was an over dude. He started his life in wrestling pretty late, but he is the guy going against NWO. And Hennig having the U.S. title, this is a chance for WCW to take that U.S. title back. And that's the story they were telling. And if that's what they were going with, I would have loved it. But to me, from like a storytelling point of view, you look at the last match and you had all that interference, and there's none in this match. And that's where I start to get really annoyed. Like, why does this make it? This doesn't make any sense for everyone to come to Buff's aid to help him beat Lex. Why aren't people coming to Kurt Hennig's aid to help him defeat and retain the U.S. title, help him defeat DDP? So, like, continuity.
If everything's on the line on this pay-per-view, why are we not acting like a cohesive unit?
This is one of those things where I start to say, wait a minute, that's the inconsistency. I don't like it. That annoys me.
Yep. I totally understand that for sure. Let's see here. So let's go ahead and get this match underway. Not long into the match, by the way, DDP, I felt like, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I was just a channel flipper for WCW. I felt like DDP always had his ribs taped up. Like, what was up with that?
Well,
I feel like that was a shoot, brother.
If you're one guy going against the NWO and they beat you up every week, you're gonna have taped ribs.
That's fair. So if you've ever spent any time listening to Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, you would learn that Dallas was Steve's travel partner back in the day, and Steve always tells stories about if you ever ran out of beer, you'd know where to find more, and it'd be DDP. But it wouldn't be from him buying them; it'd be because he'd be icing down with cold beers and stuff in the hotel rooms and stuff. He'd have like 2 or 3 of them under his arms and taped to his back and his ribs and just his knee, like everywhere. So yeah, the human ice pack, DDP. So I say that to say that at one point during the match, Kurt kind of rips away some of that ace bandage and whatever padding or ice pack or whatever Dallas had, and starts going to work on him. So,
and watching this on the network, his entrance, it doesn't have that Nirvana song, the "Smells Like Teen Spirit." That was DDP. Always like DDP, and that was something I loved about him. He came out to that self high five, and then it went into Nirvana. I always thought that was the coolest.
Never knew that. Wow.
Yeah. So, but DDP during this time period, what an overdude. The crowd loved him, and I thought that was awesome. So
it is, and that's something I've never understood as an outsider. No pun intended, but because I mean, we all know that he is like the oldest guy in the game to start a wrestling career and be as successful as he was. I just never got the overness of DDP. Like, I didn't understand what it was about him that made him connect with the audience, other than just having the information of he tried many different, I don't want to say different gimmicks, but just different reincarnations of his gimmick. And I think it was just the journey of that the crowd got behind, if I had to guess.
And I think it was the WCW, like the good versus evil going against NWO, where this is DDP, this is our guy, this is the dude. He cut a great promo. He was always high energy, and the diamond cutter was a cool move, and he always found creative ways to hit it. So, like the RKO out of nowhere, DDP would hit that diamond cutter in all sorts of creative different ways throughout a match, and that kind of added to like, oh, he's gonna hit you, and it was cool. And talk about like crowd participation. Everybody there could go like this,
bang, yeah,
and bang, and that was kind of a cool thing to get the crowd amped up and excited for him.
So for you, it's kind of a combination of just the fact that he's going against the big heels of NWO, alongside with just the really cool, innovative finisher with the Diamond King. Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. So let's see here. Let me go back over to our other view. And overall, what are your thoughts on the match here?
I enjoyed it. Kurt Hennig was always a favorite growing up. DDP was always a fun guy in WCW. Is it 5 stars? No. but it was a fun match. And the pop at the end, watching the crowd erupt for DDP, hitting the Diamond Cutter, becoming U.S. champ.
I love the way he transitioned into that Diamond Cutter. So it's like a float over DDT, and then instead of going forward for the DDT, he just turns his back, and boom, there's your Diamond Cutter, and your 1, 2, 3, and we've got a new champ. So good stuff. And the crowd, as you can see right there in the picture, even everybody's got the DDP signal up, and everybody's behind him on this. So
having something cool for the crowd to do to stand up with you. I mean, it's going to help get you over
for sure. And this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is his first title victory, correct?
I believe so. And it's just one of those things where, like, hey, this is WCW taking a shot back at the NWO.
Gotcha. So, that one goes 10 minutes, 52 seconds. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good match, too. I'm like you. Is Meltzer going to go crazy for it and give it 5 stars? No, but it doesn't need to.
No.
The
crowd reaction was there.
So last week we talked about on the other channel, we had the Nation of Domination doing the AOL stuff for WWF. Yeah. And now we've got a heel, Eddie Guerrero, doing the same kind of thing for WCWWrestling.com. Awkward for the exact same reasons, in my opinion. Not only just the technology or lack thereof at the time, but why do you have a heel talking on the phone to fans? That's just kind of awkward.
He's just telling them how great he is.
Well, I mean,
no idea.
I'll give you that one. So for our next match, we've got another singles match, and boy, is this a doozy.
Well, Bret Hart comes out. He is on a 90-day no-compete clause, so he can't wrestle.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I'm like, why is this his big... I mean, we just come up from like the biggest heel angle in wrestling history a month ago over on WWF with the Montreal Screwjob, and all he's doing is a guest ref on this. So I'm glad you clarified that, because I it was so lost on me.
So he shows up as on Nitro, and they get him involved for Starrcade, and he is going to be the special enforcer, the referee, whatever you want to call it, for Eric Bischoff versus Larry Zbyszko.
Yeah, there's another one that I've never been a big fan of. Don't understand why people enjoy him. And then there's also Larry Zbyszko. I've never understood the I don't know, just people getting behind Larry Zbyszko. I know he was on commentary. Was that before or after this, or during, or?
It's all kind of bleeds together.
Okay, because that's the only. I'm glad you said that, though, because that's the only thing that I can come up with. Again, being from the other side, if you will. This is almost Larry Zbyszko's got to be almost the same as the WWF's Jerry Lawler.
Yeah. Longtime wrestler, transitioning to commentator, backstage authority role, conflict with Bischoff, all that stuff. And he gets put in this match with Bischoff, and Bischoff has that karate background, and it is oof.
Yeah, buddy. So we get Bret Hart come to the ring, and then we get Eric Bischoff. And I've got to, we'll get there. But first of all, the outfit, the traditional, I'll use that very loosely because it's not traditional to wear what he wore. But, the pants of a gi, but not the top. The kickboxing or karate sparring pads on his feet. Just weird and awkward, but I mean, for what it was, it's exactly what it should have been. Larry Zbyszko came out to a big pop, and again, I was like, this is lost on me. I don't get it. Then we get Bischoff finally taking the jacket off, and to everybody's surprise, he actually is in fairly decent shape. Could he have done a torture act? No, he couldn't have kept up with Lex Luger by any means, but he looked better than I expected for whatever reason. So. Now, as to be expected, there's going to be a lot of gaga and craziness in this match. But the thing that I didn't expect was Bret Hart siding with Eric Bischoff so much. At first, my first reaction was, oh, this is because Eric has got the coup of getting Bret Hart on his team, sort of say, meaning, getting him from WWF. But turns out that's not the case. So Larry Zbyszko doing a lot of wrestling moves and stuff like that, trying to get in on Eric Bischoff, and every time he does, Bret Hart is there to put a stop to it.
Yeah, and Bischoff got in a lot more offense than I expected.
Yes, so, I would agree.
But as the match goes on, this is for control of Monday, the Monday night show. And as the match goes on, we get a run-in. Guess who's back? Back again.
Yeah. I've got it here somewhere. Oh, that was a neat spot, by the way, where where Larry just like literally takes Eric's nose into the mat for a shoot, because whenever Eric comes back up, his nose is like bright red. So he's getting his stuff in. But so there you can see Bret just constantly giving Larry Zbyszko a hard time, which at first I didn't get, but
he's trying to be fair. He's in the corner, can't hit him.
Eric landing some really good shots, some good kicks and stuff every now and then on Larry. But so like you said, we end up getting a run in
there he is.
from the one and only Scott Hall.
Man, I love Scott Hall, but I hated this spot.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. And as I reveal here in picture, tell us why you hate it and what's happening.
Okay, so Scott's loading up the boot, which a loaded boot I think is a cool idea. I'm all for like a loaded gimmick, whatever. Like if you're gonna load up the boot, that's cool. Yeah, like I'm like, oh, that's funny. That's whatever. This is just pure comic gold. So Bischoff winds up to throw this giant kick to Zbyszko's head with the loaded foot gimmick, and the metal thing goes flying. It had to go 20 rows into the crowd.
Oh, absolutely. So so first of all, my first thought wasn't even a loaded boot. It's oddly enough, my first thought was poor Scott, like happened to mess with some other man's foot after like midway through a match and finagle this thing in there, which as you can see in this picture, he actually starts to put it on the bottom of his foot, and then he like within a split second is like, oh, I need to put it on top of his foot. But like you said, so we don't have traditional boots on, as I said earlier. He's got like kick pads on essentially over the top of his feet. So he kicks it, and here you can see if you look in the middle of the screen, there's a blur, and that's the flying across the ring. Even Bret Hart sells this like, well, okay, so that happened. So it's not even like you could block it from the ref, which only led even more to my WTF is going on here with Bret Hart.
Yeah.
So, and then we get the awkward, rather than go for the pin, commentary is like screaming at him, like, go for the pin. What are you doing? And he's celebrating. And rather than just, like stopping the match or whatever, we essentially get Eric Bischoff winning. And then without a bell ringing or anything, we get Bret Hart just gives him a good stiff punch to the face. Eric goes down like a sack of potatoes. And then we get fired up Scott Hall, which I thought was great. The way that Scott Hall fires up, kind of the poop, 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 poop with his feet, and then runs in for the feed. Really good stuff. Another thing that I caught on camera here that was really interesting was all of a sudden, now that we've got a clearer vision of what Bret Hart is doing, boom, right here in the front row, here we get a Canadian flag where it hadn't been out previously. So I thought that was cool. It was almost like his own people were waiting to see, hey, are you with us or not? So it was neat to see that play out. But yeah, then we get a sharpshooter on Scott Hall, and something you won't see anymore on TV. Larry Zbyszko takes the belt from the bottom half of Eric's gi and chokes the crap out of him right around the neck area, and
he said, "I'll give you a black belt."
Right. Again, something you would not see nowadays. But yeah.
So, Larry Zbyszko, folks. There's your winner.
Yep. Good stuff. I got to say, I like the twist of Which way is he going to go with Brett, that kind of thing. But there's a shot earlier where Larry takes Eric into the stairs, and here you can see after the match, he's got a big old like stair print welted into his back. Just really crazy. It was cool to see Eric be almost take a page out of Vince McMahon's book. Like, I'm not going to ask you to do something I won't do, kind of thing. And he didn't care if he looked like crap doing it. He was going to do it regardless. So I do want to give props to Eric for that. So yeah, good stuff. There you see the replay of the of the loaded boot.
No, just and we can talk about this when we rebook it. Where was Vincent? Where's Scott Norton? Where's Bagwell?
Yeah. Yep. Again,
where's Macho Man?
I'll see if I can find this. Who was it that had a match and then Vincent and Norton came out and then escorted to the back before their match? I can't remember.
Was it Hennick or Buff?
It might. I don't remember. But so it
was the thing where Buff was like, "Where's Vincent?" And then that's when Vincent came out, and Vincent like, "Where's everybody else?" And
maybe there. So point being, at some point there was a time where Vincent comes from the back and gets whoever is at ringside and brings them to the back. And then they turn. So it was right before they announced Macho Man, I believe, for their match. Then they turn right back around and make their entrance. Well, whenever he first comes out, he looks normal. Does Vincent? He takes whoever it is to the back. He comes back out for his entrance, and now we get Vincent with sunglasses. And I'm like, so that was so important to you, not helping your own teammate, but you had to get your glasses for your own entrance. I was like, come on.
But if this is the boss, what happened? Where is everybody? Like,
right?
Scott's there, but nobody else. So that's where I start to have continuity issues.
I strongly agree with you, John. Like, if this is supposed to be a big angle, and on paper this is a huge angle, WCW versus NWO. This isn't small time. Why are we getting so lost in the weeds on I don't even want to call them details, because they're blatantly obvious things that you need, high points to hit.
Yeah. And we can come back to this when we rebook it, but the thing I wanted to see was everybody from the NWO out, and then you've got all those guys from WCW in the crowd. Why aren't they jumping in and saving the day?
Right.
If that's the story you're telling, that's the story I want to see. So on to the main event. We can talk rebooking later, because we both have thoughts.
On to the highest and most overpaid announcer of all time. We've got
Michael Buffer.
Thank you. Michael Buffer. Okay, so the thing, I have no problem per se with Michael Buffer. I love his voice. I love his shtick. Totally fine with it. What I'm not fine with is him taking so long to do the Hulk Hogan entrance with all the tidbits that mean nothing. That Hulk Hogan, your WCW champion, doesn't even get a nameplate, doesn't even get a lower third. If you don't know who this is, you won't know, because it won't say on screen. And maybe that's me being a production guy, but man, that drove me nuts. I mean, it's one thing for a mid-card guy or a low-card guy not to get a nameplate or something, but your champion, like, you're just going to talk over your champion's entire entrance. Just drove me nuts.
Yeah.
So we get Hogan in the black and white, still doing a lot of the shtick from the red and yellow, as he goes against the returning Sting. Again, so this was an interesting thing too, with the they have lasers above the ring for kind of the prelude to Sting's entrance. And there's two things of note here. First of all, I don't know the technology of 1997's lasers, but it was really weird to me that they're throwing this against this like see-through mesh black thing, and then they're throwing up some lasers and stuff, which look pretty cool for the time, if I'm being honest. But
I want to know what it looked like in person.
Yeah,
for the people in the arena, I bet it was really cool.
I'm very sure. Yeah, it just doesn't quite translate to video, but it really doesn't translate to what we're doing with pictures. because you just get a split second of it. But it was a picture of his face with a bat, and then you get like the scorpion, and it was really cool. It was a neat touch. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about this is on commentary, Tony Schiavone even says, "Hey guys, this is a big return. Let's lay out." I'm like, "What? Where's the thing?" That's what I was waiting for, and we didn't get it. And I was like, "This is just awkward." We had too much talking with Hogan. We have no talking at all with Sting. Weird.
I was okay. I don't know. It was just one of those things where he's finally going to wrestle. He's back.
Yeah.
He
looks totally cool.
He is going to whoop Hogan's butt. This has been a year and a half in the making. Go get him, Stinger.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just he really looks great. What really and it just literally gave me goosebumps right now looking at this picture, but is how young Sting looks. And just that he's got that like innocent kind of look in his eyes, like, okay, I've sat by and watched all the shenanigans and the BS. Now it's time to put up or shut up. And it's a really cool story. Sting is hitting all the little detailed kind of things like this, like, I'm just over your stuff and I'm here to give it to you. But that's something that I've always liked about Sting's approach, specifically in the Crow character, is he takes, again, a page almost out of Jake Roberts' playbook, where he's not like, "Hey, brother, it's just like he's just there." So
Sting is a guy I've followed on and off. At this time, I was all in on Sting. I was like, this is the coolest. Sting, for me, is always a babyface. I could not think of a time where Sting worked heel that I like want to remember, I guess.
Right.
He is the guy, the babyface of WCW, and now he's back with a new look, repackaged, looking awesome, going against Hogan. And to Hogan's credit, Hogan was an awesome babyface and an awesome heel. He could do both.
Yeah.
And
truly.
I thought the Hollywood character was great.
Yep. I wouldn't have, and nobody really would have known that Hogan could have been such a great heel had it not been for NWO. Because I growing up, I thought the same thing of Hogan that you did of Sting until NWO. The only other thing of note too, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just from my perspective, again, as somebody that would occasionally flip channels. And keep in mind, like, NWO at its start was phenomenal, but then, as everybody knows, and it's been well documented, it got just oversaturated and too many people, et cetera, et cetera. So for me as a channel flipper, it was really weird to me. It was kind of hard to keep track of who was in it. Like, if this was on TV and I flipped over to the other channel, you've got Hogan, who has been in red and yellow, now in black and white. You've got Sting, who was in like multicolored stuff, who's now in black and white. So it's like, why is the NWO fighting the NWO? But it just, again, as an outsider, it was just an interesting perspective for me. But Sting had this really cool quality to him, and it was just very cutting edge for the time too. And looking back to something, and I mean, I really want to do a deep dive on Sting at some point, and I know that we will. But it's so interesting to see how well this gimmick aged, and how it, in my opinion, probably shouldn't have. If you were to take some other character from if you made, I'm going to make a wrestler and I'm going to make him the Terminator, it's going to flop. But why does it work for the Crow? It did, because it was cool for the time. So just interesting.
Do you remember Fake Sting?
I feel like maybe.
So this Fake Stings before this, where NWO had a guy dressed up looking like Sting.
Yes, I do remember that.
Sting would come out and hit him with the bat, get rid of him.
Yeah.
That all kind of led up to this. So there was the NWO Sting at one point also.
Was that Brian Lee also, or who was that?
That's Fake Sting. I don't know.
For some reason, as you're saying that, like, I know that Brian Lee was the under Faker, and I feel like he was also the Fake Sting, but I can't remember if that's accurate or not. And the other thing you hit on was that he's mostly a babyface, and almost insinuating it for a hot minute, perhaps he was a heel. Was that during the tomato face Sting with the Wolfpack Sting?
Wolfpack was over his babyface.
Okay.
I the only time I can't think of a time off the top of my head where Sting was a heel. Gotcha. I would say maybe in TNA. But I mean, it's hard. Like at that point, Sting was the icon. I mean, he's Sting.
Overall, you look at the overallness of his career. He's the John Cena. He's the forever baby face. Like even if he dips his toes or something, like he's a baby face. The same as Ric Flair is a heel. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Flair's a baby. Yeah. I always watch him as the lens of a baby face. He's Ric Flair.
We get a really cool stare down with Sting and Hogan, and this is really interesting because if you fast forward just a couple of years, we get the same kind of standoff between Hogan and The Rock with the same kind of build up, icon versus icon, match of the century, that kind of thing. But the crowd I don't know, John, what are your thoughts? I feel like the crowd was way more behind Hogan and Rock than Hogan and Sting in the moment. As far as
I'd agree. But this, the crowd was definitely up for it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But like Hogan Rock was like another level going up higher. Like that was insanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to take anything away from this, but like this was this is what a WrestleMania, what a Starrcade should be. Number one baby versus number one heel going at it. What you had with Hogan Rock was the two biggest stars of two different generations colliding, and that puts it on another level.
Yeah.
So, as far as like what I would want out of a Mania or a Starrcade, this is it.
Yeah, like, I mean, again, on paper and even like up to this point right here where we're seeing like with the standoff, like it's delivering, it's hitting exactly what it's supposed to, all the points that it's supposed to. So, so we get into the match eventually, not without a lot of pomp and circumstance and gaga from Hogan.
Hogan, I mean, I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. Like he can work heel and babyface, like at a top main event level. And I love heel Hogan.
That's fair. I will agree with you that sometimes he doesn't get the credit he deserves. He almost gets God, I'm so hesitant to say this, but almost a similar rap to Ultimate Warrior. Whereas he's pomp and circumstance, but when it comes to wrestling time, like not so hot. I would disagree because of psychology. The dude knows how to work. He may not know he may not physically be able to, but he knows how. And
he can work the crowd, like not just work a match, but work that crowd. The crowd is in the palm of Hogan's hand at all times. He knows if I look this way, if I do this, like he knows how to get a reaction from people.
Yes,
and that's what it's all about, is getting that emotion.
You're absolutely right. And for me, I was kind of almost 50-50 split in watching this on like exactly what you're saying. Like, man, he's got him in the palm of his hand. But the other 50% of me was like, God, the same old shtick. Like, can we not just get to the match? But I keep in mind, too, I was not here for the build of this pay-per-view and the bigs. I got the package at the beginning of the pay-per-view, essentially. So I was already ready to carry on and get the match underway. And then I think a lot of that, too, is because what followed next is whenever we started the match, we get literally the exact same Hulk Hogan from 1982. All these weird noises and he's calling spots in between them. Russia. And at one point he says, ta 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 ra 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 ra. I'm like, what? Oh, Terry. Rah, 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 rah.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing a test of strength or something. Rah, 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 rah. Ta, 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 ta. I was like, Papa Shango, are you here?
Oh, Terry.
Some good spots, though, honestly. Some really good spots. So one of the things, too, that I noticed is Sting having not been back. Well, I need to stop that for a second. Why is Sting crotch chopping Hulk Hogan? He literally gives a DX crotch chop to Hogan. Hogan sells it like, whoa, I'm just like, why are we acknowledging the other channel? But that's how over DX was, kids. Yeah, even the boys were behind it. So yeah, that just totally hit me out of left field and almost took me out of the moment of this match of the century. But so we get some flying around on the outside from Sting. Hogan moves out of the way. We get a leg drop from Hogan. I don't know if I've missed it already or not. I hope I haven't. But at one point, Sting goes for a Stinger splash and overshoots it. He almost like dumps himself outside of the
he was feeling it for sure. He was feeling the emotion, feeling the big time match, and he hits that. He goes for the Stinger splash, and he almost goes over him.
Yeah. It's almost like he has to catch himself on the top rope. So yeah, I'm sure that was just the excitement and the adrenaline in the moment and stuff. Plus, just having been gone for a while. But nonetheless, it translated to me as just a fired up baby face. So it totally worked. I wouldn't consider that a botch whatsoever. So yeah, so we get the leg drop from Hogan, and I'm going to defer to you on this. Do you know what was supposed to happen? Do you know what's going on here?
Was it I don't know what you're going with, like the fast count or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going for a fast count, and well, there's a referee earlier in the night who's going to make his comeback.
Okay. So, Mickey Henson, is that right? Or Mickey J, as you guys would know him in WCW. I think that's who this is. Anyway, so the finish is supposed to be Hogan pinning Sting after the leg drop for a fast 3 count, which is not a fast 3 count. It's a normal 3 count. So that was a complete botch of a very important part of the most, of your main event. So it's supposed to be a fast count, which is why Bret Hart stops the timekeeper from ringing the bell. But since it wasn't fast, it's like, well, what's going on? I don't get this. So Bret stops him from doing that, from ringing the bell, and ends up punching the referee, knocks the referee out. And so Hogan does the whole I'm over this, brother. And then so then Bret brings him back into the ring to let Sting finish him off. And we've got Hogan just sound like, oh no, this is the end of the world, brother.
And because of that fast count, Bret makes the comment, like, I'm not going to let what happened to me happen to anyone else. I don't want anyone to get, robbed of a title like he was in Montreal.
Gotcha. Which, now that you're laying that out that way, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, from a storytelling point of view, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Keep going. Yeah. So Bret restarts the match. There's that Stinger.
There's where he overshoots. Yeah.
He nails it, but he's pretty high.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. And looks like we got some more interference.
Yeah.
Is that buff?
That's a buff.
Yeah. And Scott Norton for the third time.
And where were they during Bischoff? Again, like
exactly.
Doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Yep. And I'm sure there was more people in NWO at that point than just Scott Norton and Buff Bagwell.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We get another Stinger splash, this time a little bit lower. And then the Scorpion Deathlock, which, and this part I totally got. I thought this was a fantastic touch. How he hooks the feet, but before turning him over, he gives kind of a nod, or points or something.
Don't you dare.
Yeah, to Bret, and he hits it, and boom, there you go. Hogan taps for the finish, and finally, we get the WCW guys in the ring, and as they hoist up your new WCW Heavyweight Champion, Sting,
and everybody's there. Ernest the Cat. Horseshoes running around. There's Luger. Some of the luchadors. There's Rey Mysterio hanging out too. Everybody in WCW. They empty the locker room and they all go out to celebrate with the Stinger.
Yeah.
And then we get credits.
Yeah, which I put that on there on purpose. I thought it was so cool, and I know that WCW did this more than just on this occasion, but I thought it was so cool that they gave credit to the people that made the show possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I almost wish that all the wrestling shows did this, because I mean, there's a lot of hard work that goes into what we get to watch every week. So, props to them for doing that. But yeah, that is WCW Starrcade 1997. So now we've got to ask the hard hitting questions here. How would you rebook this, John? What stands out to you as something that, in retrospect, is easy to see that they should have done different, that you would have done different?
Well, there's a lot. But if you want to start with the big one, Bret Hart. You've got the hottest babyface free agent coming in. Yep. You're using him as a referee. That is, not the way I would have done things. For me, I would have gone straight away to not having him be a referee. And I would have had something where if you have Stinger win at the end, if that's your end goal, I feel like you need to have Bret either come out and do a stare down after the show with Sting and set up that dream match, Stinger versus Bret. If you don't want to go straight to that, you could have Bret, come out during the show and say, it's great to be here in WCW. But I wouldn't have him debut on Nitro. I'd air a vignette on Nitro saying, hey, if you want to see Bret Hart in WCW, buy the pay-per-view. You'll get to see him.
Exactly.
And I would have done something with Bret cutting a promo about how he was robbed of being world champion and how he's in WCW and he wants to have a title shot. Have him cut a promo talking how he wants the winner of Sting versus Hogan. And then NWO music hits, Scott Hall comes out and says, no way, Bret. I'm the next one in line for a title shot. And then you can build off a match on that and have Bret have an obstacle, but you still have him chasing that title. And then eventually you can build to Sting versus Bret, Sharpshooter versus Scorpion, and you could have them both be baby faces and both build up, so it's this huge match. I don't know. Bret Hart's the main thing I would have rebooked. That could be a whole series of WCW or Bret Hart in WCW and rebooking that. That's my number one beef with it. The Sting Hogan, I would have liked to have had some sort of clean finish personally, without the interference, without the restart. I don't know. You could have legit had Sting drop Hogan with a Scorpion Death Drop, win the title in 2 seconds, and I would have loved that. It's not the match. I'd want to see the actual match, but if you would have gone that way, that would have been a shock. You would have got that pop. Sting got the title, and you would have had Hogan be like, what?
Big time.
I think you could have also booked this as a show to kill the NWO. Hindsight's 2020. But I think you could have easily killed the NWO at this show, and basically the next night have Hogan, Hall, and Nash say, you know what, this is too big. We need to regroup. Start having an internal civil war within the NWO there, and just build it back to just.
I don't want to interrupt you on your thoughts, but yeah, if you've already got Scott Norton and Vincent in the NWO, this is already the beginnings of overinflation of the group. Yeah,
let's make some cuts. Yeah, but those are like my big things. So as far as like the main event, but the show itself, I can go on about that. What are your thoughts?
Well, going off of your Bret Hart stuff here, I agree that a standoff alone against Bret and Sting could have been great. If that's where they want to go. I think the reason that the whole thing suffers is they didn't know where they wanted to go. And so it was just, they were trying to, we'll put you as a ref because that doesn't really do anything. Yeah, it does. It kind of buries your big guy. But
you've got him coming in. He is the top guy in WWF. And I feel like you just lowered him.
Yeah.
And you squandered this giant get.
Yeah, exactly. So the only thing similar, again, just on paper, if people are watching for whatever reason and haven't watched a lot of wrestling, which I highly doubt, but so a comparison I can make is Ken Shamrock debuts in WWF as a ref, but he didn't have a big wrestling name. He was a MMA fighter, so he had a big name. But again, going against what I said with like Mongo and Goldberg as football players, like they're making the transition into wrestling. That translated well for Ken Shamrock. It does not translate well for somebody that's an established wrestler to then transition into a ref, and then you're going to try and use them as a top guy. That doesn't make sense. That's a total step backwards. I think that if they weren't going to go with a Sting versus Brett angle from the get go, I think keep like I actually wouldn't have originally thought this, but I like your idea of having him come out and cut a promo and talk. And honestly, like tell us how you're happy to be here, because literally the last thing we saw you do in WWF was this thing and the WCW, and so it's like we've all been waiting to see your arrival. And you literally arrive, I'm not kidding, with your hands in your pockets as a ref, and I'm like, this is awful. I would have liked to have seen him cut a promo, but I really would have liked to have seen, first of all, the referee not to have botched the fast count, but like there'd have been more time, more space between. Holy cow! Here we got Sting returning, and he loses. And give it a minute. Don't ring the bell. Just let it sit. Don't play music. Don't whatever. And then we get Bret Hart full throttle running to the ring, and then there's your, hey, I'm not doing this again. And then at least if you're going to make him an enforcer at that point, you've already got a storyline there that you're going with, but to kind of like dip a toe in that, like with him sitting at ringside for this, I was like a swing and a miss, really. And I don't feel like he ever recovered from this. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like Brett ever came across as a main eventer in WCW. Nowhere near like what he did in WWF anyway.
And you mentioned like dip a toe. Sting, I think, had the foresight to dip that toe and point at Brett, because that's a moment. Like it's a small moment, but it's a big moment. But it's big. I shouldn't say
one
small.
Of those, if you know.
It's a quick big moment. I shouldn't say it's small. It's a quick big moment.
Yep.
And
it's almost an Easter egg, if you will. I mean, if you know the backstory, then it's like, oh wow, did you see that? If you don't, you just you don't think anything of it.
And like that's something you could. Yeah, I thought they botched Bret Hart. I get that Kevin Nash going down like day of, like potentially having a heart attack. It's you got to scramble and rebook things. There's more problems with this show, but like the big picture, the way they handled Brett was terrible.
I agree. Now, a kind of a sidestep here, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know I'm putting you on the spot. I haven't really told you to research this or anything, but I'm 90% sure that British Bulldog goes over to the WCW with Bret Hart, does he not?
I felt like he was there a little before.
Okay,
was he after?
Even better. So why wasn't Bulldog
he was
there?
in Survivor Series. It might be afterwards. Yeah,
maybe. I do know that at some point he leaves because of the fallout from Montreal, but I don't know if it was directly, immediately, or what. But if he was not in WWF, that would have been a great position. There's what you should have done for your opening promos. Had Bulldog there to talk about, to hype up how proud his brother-in-law is to be here and all this, and you'll see him before the end of the night, that kind of thing, and then you do your run out, and yeah. I mean, there's a million different ways they could have gone with it, but they chose the way that was like pretty lackluster overall.
But that's a big issue. But if I was rebooking the show as a whole, the issues with Hitman are there. The issues with Kevin Nash falling apart the day of. I honestly, and this sounds crazy. I would have booked Kurt Hennig and DDP to open the show.
I would have been fine with that, John. I even made the comment when we're talking about it. It's typical for WCW to just have the go-to of, opening a show, give me some cruiserweights.
Yeah.
Well, then it becomes predictable, And
I think DDP winning to start the show, that's a pop you want. That's something cool you could have done. And then, I lost it. Then go to Dean Eddy. So I'd be fine with that because that was a solid match. Second on the show's not bad. Yep. You could then have done. You could have done anything with the Giant. You could have the Giant come out and yell at Hitman. But the Scott Hall thing, that's fine. I think you could have had Giant come out and cut a promo on anybody. and just say Kevin Nash isn't here tonight. I don't know where he is. I'm going to catch up with him one day, and then have somebody come out. You could have had Macho Man come out there and done Giant and Macho. That would have been something different. Anyway, the big thing I would have changed is the flow, where I would have had. I would have done that crazy 6-man, and I would have had Buff like second the group. And after the match, have Buff say, Luger, I've got you next. Get out here. And then you've got all those guys out there already. You don't have to do all the 10,000 run-ins. And then when that's going on, either you could have that go down however you want. If you've got NWO winning the tag match, then you have NWO winning the Buff and Luger. You could have had all those guys just stay out there and been like, all right, guys, we're the best, NWO for life, all that jazz. And then had Bischoff come out and just do the 3 NWO things in a row, which I get, it's overkill, but you're not having to do all the run-ins again.
Well, not only that, but that by nature is subsidizing or supplementing rather the NWO versus WCW and the importance of who comes out on top tonight. Because that was the biggest thing for me. Not only the Brett thing, but just, man, like if they hadn't have said at the beginning of the show, and especially right before the Eric and Larry match, I would have not known that there was anything up for grabs for the night. And what was up for grabs was huge in storyline and concept. And I'm like you, I would have changed the flow. So you got Dean and Eddie singles match, 6-man match. You've got Goldberg and Steve McMichael singles match.
I'd probably
Chris, singles match.
I'd move all that stuff up on the card and then do all the NWO in a row.
Buff and Lex singles match. Kurt and DDP singles match. So 5. Eric and Larry 6 singles matches, and the main event another singles match. So seven singles matches. By nature, it feels like they should have just had more variety in the card itself. And I think that their counter to that was, singles match. We'll do a run on the first one and on the third one, and it's like then you're just going to the same well too many times, and this could have been done so much better.
And the way I think I would have done it would be the 6-man and bleed that into Buff and Luger and then bleed it into Bischoff and Larry. And I would have just had NWO get all the heat in the first 2. And then as Eric's trying to cheat to steal the thing, that's when you have your WCW guys start to come out of the locker room. You could have the Steiners beat down, have them make a big comeback. You could then have all the guys hop the guardrail and have a huge WCW versus NWO brawl, just to mix it up, have this crazy shenanigans thing, and then the ring clears and it's nothing but Bischoff and Larry, and then Larry gets his stuff in real quick, boom, 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 pin, WCW wins, and you've got all the NWO guys chased away, all the WCW guys standing tall, and they're chasing them away, and then what do you have left at the end of the night? You've got your main event title match, and you know there's going to be no shenanigans, no run-ins then.
Right.
And that to me, I think, would have put more emphasis on it. And you have the commentators say, all right, the NWO has been chased out of town. We are down to the main event, the match we've all been waiting for, and it's going to be one-on-one. And I think that would have made a stronger match, stronger pay-per-view. Instead of having all this, well, why are they running in this match and not running in this match?
And why is it the same 2 people? Why is it the same 2 people? Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and like you said too, with the whole Kevin Nash thing, I know that kind of threw a wrench in everything. But man, again, NWO at this point, even I know it gets way more overinflated even as time goes. But even at this point, 97, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's got a big enough roster that you could have had. I mean, you wouldn't have had to have Scott Norton come out 3 times in a pay-per-view.
And talking about all this rebooking and what we would have done different, You mentioned the Nash thing. You could have had big or giant cut a promo backstage saying at some point Kevin Nash and the NWO were going to get theirs, and then as the NWO and like the way I would book it is have the NWO reigning tall 2 matches in a row. Then during the Bischoff Larry thing, Giant could have come out then and cleaned house, and he would have got the babyface pop then.
You're absolutely right. You bring up another point that it didn't even dawn on me. This whole pay-per-view, John, they never went backstage once. Everything is totally done at ringside. And so that also does not help the flow. Like, it should feel like an event. It should feel, like that's one thing that WWF always got right was the big pomp and circumstance of, and backstage, JR, and they'd be backstage, give an interview, and then you go to somewhere like, just there wasn't enough bounce around for me to make it feel like a big event, and it's their biggest event of the year. So,
and I thought, overall, when you look at it, Dean and Eddie, solid match. The 6-man, it was what it was. It wasn't the worst thing, but it was by no means great.
I mean, yeah, it was kind of hairy, but it was a good match.
Yeah, Goldberg and Mongo. It was what it needed to be. It was a nice little brawl. You had a table spot. You got to see something break. Saturn and Benoit, solid match. Like you said, it was a surprise for you, but it was different. Buff and Luger, shenanigans.
So there's a term that Vince loves to use, Vince McMahon, by the way, in WWF world or WWE, whatever you want to call it. And he likes to have a let me up match, or as a lot of fans would know, as a popcorn match. That's something that this whole card suffers from. And in fact, we get the opposite, which is why I stopped you during the Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger. It's not a let me up match. It's a bring me down match. It's just, it wasn't a good match, let alone the participants. It just wasn't great. So go ahead.
Yeah. And like to have something to bring them down, you could have done something with a promo to bring people down, or like a more recap video for the feud. I know production might not be there, but
it would have been a great spot for some kind of haha is what I was looking for. Like where's your Doink the Clown kind of match, or your whatever Goofy the Hurricane or something. I mean something. Where's your this is probably before oh shoot, what's the boy band? NSYNC,
Backstreet Boys.
No.
3 Count.
Yeah,
3 Count's like dying WCW.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But yeah, and Hennig DDP was fun for the pop. Bischoff Zbyszko, that Bischoff Zbyszko, I think could have had the shenanigans for the haha. I mean, it did have that terrible botch spot, which was haha, but not good.
Right, for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, but that you could have done.
Right. On paper, that should have been your haha spot or match, was seeing Bischoff wrestle. But it wasn't, because there was so much surrounding crap that, I mean, it's just, yeah.
And I think that would have been cool to clear everybody out, so okay, NWO was, shenanigans 3 matches in a row. Now all the WCW guys chased them all away, and you're going to have that one-on-one main event. That's what I would have preferred. Yeah. Because it didn't make sense, like, for them to be so inconsistent, like, with when they would interfere and when they wouldn't.
Yep.
What would you have done different? Anything? All of it?
Exactly what you're saying. Like, it was so lost on me as a viewer that there was anything as big at stake as the power of the Monday Night Show, who it would go to. Like I said, kind of in the show, like it should have been more of how we know as a draft or a brand split in WWF or WWE. Like you said too, just 2 different locker rooms, like rooting on your team or supporting your team physically, whether it be running in and helping them when they're down, or just something. It just panning to people sitting in the crowd, just dead like that. Like, it did nothing. Like, I just don't get that. And they did it many times. I showed one picture, but they went to that well many times in awkward spots even throughout the night.
And if they were going to do that, they could have, shoved a mic in their face and said, "What do you think about the main event? How do you think things are going? What are you going to do if Hogan wins? What are you going to do if Sting wins?"
Right. Or I mean, going off your idea of having them in a locker room, even go cut to the camera of here's like 25 empty chairs and just tease that. Don't say anything. And then at the end of the night, it's just like what we watched on ECW One Night Stand. Then all of a sudden we get the support come and fill the seats for the main event. Like that would have made the main events feel even more special. But the fact you've got them sitting out there like bumps on a log for let's see here,
3 hours,
2 hours, 42 minutes and 55 seconds. Yeah, it did nothing to make it feel special.
And the WCW guys sat there and never got involved when the NWO was interfering.
Right. You didn't even see him like over the railings or nothing. The only people that jumped the rails were the flock.
Yeah. So, yeah. And if they can do it, why can't I?
Hello. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
So, you know, Hogan Sting didn't live up to the hype. You got the pop of Sting winning the title. You got the pop of Sting back in the ring. And those were the things everybody wanted to see. You wanted to see the Stinger splash. You wanted to see him take the coat off, chase Hogan with the bat, and win that title back for WCW. Those are the things they wanted. Were they accomplished? Yes. Could it have been better? Absolutely.
Overall, would you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, thumbs in the middle?
Parts of it I really liked, parts of it I didn't. As a whole, we're going to go B minus.
Okay, that's fair. I would go right in the middle, just because like I really want to give it a thumbs up because of the great matches that some of these were. Dean and Eddie and Perry and Benoit, like just totally jump off the page to me as legit thumbs up matches. But just some of the swings and misses throughout the night just kind of bring that thumb down.
Yeah. So we talked about the order already, but like the Macho Man surprise, that's cool. But
it didn't feel like a big deal.
Like why are your teammates coming out, then 3 other guys, and then you? It's
yeah. There's I think to kind of summarize, I feel like they took a lot for granted. Did the powers that be of WCW of they'll know. Well, no, not everybody does, especially in the 90s where people were channel flipping and having to choose. Like you need to catch people up and talk in full sentences like the whole time, you know.
And Kevin dropping out, I agree that is going to throw a wrench in your show because Giants versus Giant, that's a huge match. And you got to figure things out on the fly. But
I'm kind of glad that match didn't happen, by the way, if I'm being honest. I feel like it would have been really clunky. I'm just not a big fan of big monster versus big monster. It's just it very rarely translates to like, wow, this is actually really cool.
Yeah, it happens later, and there's a really scary power bomb.
Oh, really?
Yeah, check it out. Nash power bombing Big Show or Giant. Scary.
Huh. Crazy. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks for picking that one. Thanks for putting me through a Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger match, you dirty dog.
You're welcome.
So, I'm going to do some homework and see what we're going to do on the next episode, I guess. And we'll surprise them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take that. Join us next time here on Recliner Wrestling Review. John, thank you again so much for your time and your thoughts on today's pay-per-view. And, I guess we'll see you on the next go-round, guys.